What up, guys? It is Wednesday, running a little late. Our bad. We have FFPC waivers finalizing here in 38 minutes. I'm joined by my co-host, the maven of stat chasing, Pat Crane. What's up?
Not too much, man. I enjoy whatever this cadence is you're using for the intro. Yeah, I think this can be a fun episode. We got an iTunes review saying we're not talking about our teams enough. So I think we're going to do a little bit more of a team-by-team review here, go through. And it kind of serves as like a mid-season checkup because in the FFPC, the regular season only goes through week 11. So, we're like, if we had a Thursday night game or whatever, which we don't this week, but we'd be, I guess after the 1 o'clocks, we're halfway through the season,
Yeah, as Wingnut says, let's fucking go. Bring some fire, bitches. We got you. We will bring the fire tonight. It is funny. They say no one cares about your fantasy team. We got an iTunes review that said, you're not telling us about your fantasy team enough. They said we strayed from our roots, Pat.
Well, I mean, that is true. We used to just talk endlessly about our own team, and now we try to interact with the listeners, and we bring guests on. So it is. I mean, that was a very correct review.
In my mind, I was like, if we just are talking about the very odd specifics of our team, we just lost Dak Prescott in one of our best main event teams. How much are we going to bid on Andy Dalton or another quarterback? But no, I just assumed people would want us to talk about more general waiver situations. But there are people out there, Pat, they want to know how we're doing. And I just say it, our main event teams are crushing right now.
Our main event teams are crushing, and that includes the Crack Rock team, who I think maybe we could start with that. We've got one in the we got a comment in the chat here saying show us the Crack Rock team. So that team, I checked Crack Rock's portfolio. It's doing pretty good. It's doing pretty good, even with Crack Rock, and it's our best main event team of the three, although our other two aren't far behind.
Yeah, I'm going to pull this up now. I have to do so basically FFPC lets you have a manager and a co-manager on each team. So Pat and I are in so many teams that are tri-managed, quad-managed, quintuplet managed that I have to log in and out of accounts to do it. But our main event team with Crack Rock here, let me share my screen. We are in 258th place. There's, I want to say 2,600 teams in the main event here. We are 4-1. Crack Rock, I mean, this team is so sick. All right, we have 798 points, the second most in the league, just off of first place. But this team is just
showing our bids, buddy.
Just for a second. They didn't see him. They're not fast enough. This team, we have Austin Eckler injured, but just to let you know how good this team was, we sat Keenan Allen this week. We sat Chase Claypool. We sat Justin Herbert. I mean, this team, Pat, it's a monster.
It's a monster. Yeah, we played it conservatively with some of the decisions this week. We wanted to give ourselves a chance at Diggs, and so we waited on. So we started some guys. So it came down to Keenan Allen and Stephon Diggs. We did end up going with Diggs and Josh Allen, and then we had already decided that we were playing the big dog because we didn't have a backup running back. You might as well risk taking a zero because, again, we weren't sure if that Tuesday night game was going to go on Sunday. It was no point in starting Benny Snell over the big dog. So we took that risk, but we did go ahead and put ourselves in a position where we could either start Keenan Allen or we could start Stephon Diggs. We ended up going with Diggs.
Yeah, I do want to. I actually saw this. Henry Muto saying, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but my main event team is in 6th place overall. I did see that today. I was looking at the top of the leaderboard. I said, Henry Muto, that's a ship-chasing hardcore fan. Congratulations, Henry. I'm glad that all of the advice you listened to from ship-chasing has paid off in the form of a 6th place team in the main event. That's the ship-chasing bump right there, Pat.
Yeah, you're welcome, Henry. We should give a shout to Evan Silva too, because their team is 61st overall in the main event. Yeah, so they're doing quite well as well. His St. Louis boys.
All right, I'll try not to look at show our other bids here. Our other teams in the main event. We have our two ship chasing. You can see our records over here. Pay no attention to my record in these two best ball leagues, which might be 12th, but you're either first or you're last. the drunk, but the Bunny Ears team, the Philadelphia Eagles onslaught, isn't doing too good. But however, our two main event teams are also in the top 400 out of 2,600 teams. We can pull these up, and I'll go off screen while I get these so you don't see my bids here. But we did, Pat, we're taking hits in our ship chasing 2 team. You know, we lost Christian McCaffrey early.
A lot of hits. And
then we just lost Dak Prescott.
Yeah. Yeah, we lost Dak. Devastating injury. I mean, it's just the whole thing sucks. This whole contract year situation sucks. He was just like, to me, the main reason to watch football is good quarterback play. Like, that's the whole game. It's just you want to see really good quarterback play. That unlocks the receiving game. That unlocks all the fun receivers. It's like, it's the better way. It's this better version of football when you have an awesome, as many awesome quarterbacks in the league as we can possibly get. And Dak was an awesome quarterback. So I'm just bummed out for football's sake. Obviously, we did have some pretty important exposure to him too, because we not only had him in our second main event, but we had him in our ship taking team with Davis Maddock, one of the football guys' teams. That's our highest scoring team in the whole portfolio. So definitely a big loss for us as well.
Here's what I will say about this. We've mentioned this on the show. We're not going to tell you our exact bids. We are willing to be more transparent than 99.9% of competitors in the FFPC and FBG contest. But this is what I will say as a tip. So today, Pat and I, we went into we lost Dak Prescott in 2 leagues, and we went in and we're looking at how many quarterbacks does each team have, who is facing a bye week, who is facing poor performance from their quarterbacks. One thing you'll find is no one wants to raw dog quarterbacks in the FFPC. We are routinely one of the only teams that has one quarterback, maybe save for the Lamar Jackson team. And what I also like to do is look at the fab bids over the course of the season. How much did Teddy Bridgewater go for a week ago? How much did Justin Herbert go for a week ago? So use that information to calibrate your bid, and that is impacting how much we want to go on an Andy Dalton. And for the most part, Pat, there are a lot of decent, viable quarterback options, even with most teams carrying 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, there are. Quarterback's a deep position. Guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, not a great real-life quarterback, although he's actually playing pretty well this year. But, him being able to chuck the ball around and score a lot of fantasy points helps you. And the other thing is that the FFPC scoring is pretty flat. There are quarterbacks who give you an elite ceiling in this format because the FFPC scoring really prioritizes getting rushing quarterbacks. But once you lose the guys, there's not some quarterback with an amazing rushing upside still on waivers. But once that class of quarterback isn't available, then the guys are pretty similar. There's not a huge difference between what Teddy Bridgewater is going to give you versus what Derek Carr is going to give you, kind of on and on. So we're of the mindset where you don't want to blow a huge chunk of your fab on a quarterback. And if you look at, we lost Dak in a league and Ryan Tannehill's there. So yeah, we can go get Dalton, but there's other guys there too. We can go get Matthew Stafford in one of the leagues. So there are other options besides Andy Dalton. It's not like the waiver wire is really even that dry. I mean, Matthew Stafford is a guy going in the 11th, 12th round. So I feel pretty good about the options right now. And in the bye weeks, I think we could see some of those teams carrying 3 quarterbacks. They could drop down to just 2. I think guys like Breeze, who's kind of struggling a little bit and has a bye, could hit waivers. So I think that if you can even just get through a week, let's say you lost Dak and you just get Fitzpatrick for this week, I think that someone will become available through the bye weeks that would give you a little bit more upside later in the season. So I wouldn't panic and think you have to get your starting quarterback for the rest of the season right now. The thing I'll say in the first main event we did is it became pretty clear early in the season that Carson Wentz, who we drafted, was not going to cut it. We now have Justin Herbert and Teddy Bridgewater, but we took a couple weeks to get that into place. We kind of, we patched it up, and then we found guys with longer term upside.
And I feel good about that because that was kind of our our thesis this season is in most of our teams, we took a crack on that elite tier. We have a Dak Prescott, we have a Deshaun Watson, we have a Kyler Murray. Obviously, we just lost Dak Prescott. Or in a couple of leagues, we waited. In the Crack Rock League, we got Josh Allen gifted at an insane price. And in this league, our earliest main event, we took a shot on Carson Wentz. But the whole idea was we took a relatively early shot relative to punting it completely, knowing, look at who we just plugged it in with. We grabbed Teddy Bridgewater and Herbert off of waivers. And these are two pretty good options to go through with the rest of the season. And it was like, you take a big swing. All right, Carson Wentz didn't work out. That's all right. You can play the waiver wire. But I like how we approached it. We either tried to access ceiling early or we tried to access it late, knowing we had that safety net.
Yeah, and we normally, like when we draft teams, we want to take one quarterback typically. That's the way we like to do it. The reason to do that is because there's a lot we don't know entering a season. Like Myles Gaskin is literally like a bell cow running back who we did not know was even in the rotation. We thought that rotation was me, Jordan Howard, and Matt Breida. We thought maybe Lynn Bowden would be involved when he got traded. Like, we didn't realize that Myles Gaskin was just going to kind of run away with that job. So you want to get as many guys on your roster. Like, you know, if you happen to get James Robinson in the last round, that was so much more valuable than getting a quarterback who you've probably dropped at this point. So I think early on before the season, it really does make sense to go with one quarterback and get those extra scratch off lottery tickets. Once we get to this point in the season, I think it can make sense now to start with two quarterbacks, especially because with the COVID testing now on Sunday, we could see games getting canceled last minute. So we don't want to be exposed to that. But let's welcome our buddy Blair Andrews to the show.
Yeah, we have a special guest here. It looks like he's about to broadcast live from an acoustic set in a coffee shop right now. How are we doing, Blair?
Looks like you just finished your show. How'd it go?
Just finished my set. It was not a very big crowd, but we're hanging in there.
How we doing here? So we were just recapping some of our main event teams. The haters will love to know that we are fighting. We are, kicking and screaming, trying to get this 0 RB quad team back to life. I'll pull it up here on the screen in a second. Blair, how are we feeling about this team?
I'm feeling pretty good, to be honest. I mean, we still have all this. I know it looks bad, right? We still have all this wide receiver firepower that is going to actually hit eventually. I mean, now we got AJ Brown back. He looked great last night. Great. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that.
This is so I just pulled up this team. This is I loved this team when we drafted it. Kyler at quarterback, Kittle at tight end, took a little bit for Kittle to get back rolling, and AJ Brown and Kenny Golladay. The team, and we actually hit on some of our running back targets, Darrell Henderson and DeAndre Swift. You'll see here on our starting lineup.
Did we lose Sutton here too? Was this
we lost Sutton here? Yeah, didn't we?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So, yeah.
Pat, we lost Sutton in every league.
Yeah, I just assumed we lost Sutton because I drafted him literally everywhere.
The thing that kills about, and I've been thinking about the Sutton thing, is like we have teams with DK Metcalf and we have teams with Diggs, and Metcalf was going slightly ahead of Sutton. Diggs was going slightly after Sutton, but we were just so enamored with Sutton, and dare I say rightfully so, but it stings to not have more Metcalf and more Diggs because those were the guys we were considering in that range.
Yeah. I look at Sutton's adjusted Whopper where you divide the Whopper by how many routes he run per dropback, and he just looks like in those 20 routes he looked like the most dominant wide receiver in football. and then he tore his ACL.
Yeah,
I guess go look at that sometimes.
So we're rehabbing. We are doing CPR on this team. We're about to bring it back to life here. I'm not going to show the bids. We're 2-3 here, but we have a lot of things breaking our way here. We have Shenault and Mecole Hardman's role growing, Blair. We have Kenny Golladay and AJ Brown back to full health. If we can start to get some ceiling games from these 5 positions and we get the Kyler continuing to roll, like this team can cook, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what Hassan keeps reminding us is that we haven't actually been able to start all 5 of our first picks ever in this season. And I guess we won't anyway because Sutton. But, it's like you hope that your wide receivers are going to carry you through the early weeks when you can't have a running back starter, and that didn't happen for us. But now we're, I think, going to hit our stride.
Yeah, we're, with the Sammy Watkins injury, Mecole's looking a lot better. I mean, Chark's banged up, but LaVisca's targets continue to increase. And, people, Blair, do you remember when people said to us, how are you going to know how to start all of these wide receivers? How are you going to do it? Look who we're starting. We have Julio Jones on the bench. Christian Kirk didn't end up who we thought he would be. Okay, like Cortland Sutton is out for the season. This is why you draft a shit ton of wide receivers, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Sean wrote the article in the offseason. If you're not having success with zero running back, it probably means you're not drafting enough wide receivers, and this is exactly why. So, and Sean's always right, of course.
One of the things Pat and I have been talking about too is like normally our teams are fully built like this, where they're slow starters because we're waiting for the chaos of the season to catch in, and then we finish really strong. The first time Pat and I did the FFPC main event, we finished. We had like 5 of 6 winning weeks to finish the season, and we barely missed. So the fact that our main event teams are off to fast starts with one single alpha running back and then or 1 or 2, that bodes really well for these squads. And this team, it doesn't look great by record at 2-3, but this is generally how we build, and that can strengthen as the season goes on. So I'm not throwing in the towel on this squad, Blair.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the whole idea behind anti-fragility, right? Is when there's chaos in the season, your team gets stronger. So here we go.
So FFL Master asks, so I'll tell you our full portfolio right now. We are in 3 main events. 2 of them Pat and I are in on our own. A third one we co-manage with Crack Rock. That's our 3 investments. All 3 of those are in the top 400 of 2,600 teams. We are in 4 or 5 Football Guys championships. 2 of them are 0 RB teams with Blair and Hassan. The quad, Robust RG with Ben Gretch and Sean Siegel. Chasing OT, Sean Siegel, Colum Kelly, and then Ship Taking, which is top 300, Pat, in the FBG with Davis?
Yeah, I think that was top 300.
Yeah.
I can check right now.
We're having a good year. Ship Chasing is having a very good year so far, and we haven't even hit the buys week. I'm ready for the buys. I want to punish people who don't have the depth at wide receiver that we have.
Yeah, the buys are that's our time to shine, man. Like it really is. That's why we were catching up that first year, because we were deep in that team, and some of these teams now have firepower up top and they're deep. I mean, there's a little bit of fragility with some of these builds because we do the one elite running back, the modified 0 running back. You take the guy in the first round and then you go away from it. Some of those teams don't have the strong running backs behind them yet. I think we'll dig those guys up. One way or another, we'll get deeper at running back. But some of those teams, if they were to lose a guy, it would really hurt. But yeah, I think we're getting stronger, and we have some really elite firepower on some of these teams too.
Let's toss this one to Blair. 24 Offsuit asks, maybe you covered this already, but what does your bench construction look like with these 0 RB builds? And as Blair talks, I can pull up our quad team here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, I'm trying to load up on a lot of these running backs that we expect to hit. So it's going to be a very running back heavy bench. Typically would like to get an elite tight end and a pretty good quarterback, so you don't have to spend another bench spot on both of those positions. Maybe one is not so bad, but you kind of attack the running back position with just a lot of numbers, a lot of exposure to different guys, and hope one of them pans out.
And one thing you think about and what's impacting our decisions on the waiver is, Pat and I, take our KFFSC team, for example, here. This has been a pretty good team. We hit Mike Davis on waivers early. We have Ronald Jones. We have Dalvin Cook. We have Jerick McKinnon. So on this team, Pat and I are taking really big cuts at running back because we don't need to spot start a Travis Homer, a JD McKissick, someone with a high floor but a low long-term ceiling. So the context of your team really impacts how you think about that. Whereas, say for the quad, as I get it pulled up here, we have some weeks where we do need a floor of production. But for the most part, I would say we have there's textures to these running backs. Benny Snell, that's a pure handcuff thing. Dearness Johnson might have some standalone value. Zach Moss is a mixture of both. Eno Benjamin is a pure speculative handcuff, needs an injury, but has the talent profile we like to explode. So, Blair, how do you think about these different profiles of running backs and how they fit into a team construction?
Yeah, I think you have to, you kind of mentioned it, you have to see how the season is going for, the team you drafted. Like, I'm in a Football Guys with Dave Cabin, and that one is not going so well. We had lost Saquon in that one. And so, the guys we're adding at running back are players that we actually are hoping to be able to spot start. So we don't have necessarily the space to stash an Eno Benjamin or, some of these other guys who are more speculative. So we've had to boot those guys off the bench in order to make room for, like the Rex Burkheads and stuff. So it really depends on what you can afford to do with these kind of high upside stashes.
I wanted to pull up this question, and I'm going to throw this to Pat and also show something here. So Andrew asked, do you allocate significant fab to wide receivers like Claypool if you went 0 RB, or content passing him up and saving the clip for RBs? Now, Pat, our main event first team we did, it's not a true 0 RB. We did take Alvin Kamara first overall, but we went heavy on T. Higgins. Maybe talk about why in a modified 0 RB team we still went heavy on T. Higgins here in week 4, spent 287 fab on him.
Yeah, that's something that we've been talking about, like ways to tweak our process a bit, is making sure that we still have upside to exposure to big upside at wide receiver as the season goes on, making sure that we're not missing out on those rookie wide receivers who are popping. And this was a particularly exciting class. I mean, T. Higgins isn't even one of the guys that I'm most excited about in this class, but we made an attempt to get him, and we got him for, I think, what did we spend? Over $200. I mean,
it was 287. It was a significant bid. Second highest bid was 121. I mean, we went after him.
Yeah, and I feel great about that. This week was awesome for T. Higgins. It looks like now he's going to make an attempt to take that job from the number 1 role in the offense from Tyler Boyd.
Look at those targets, 9, 7, and 8.
Yeah. So you don't want to miss out. You don't want to get blinded to these wide receivers that are coming up just because you feel good about your elite wide receivers. I mean, we just laid out with the quad how quickly wide receiver can get gross, even when you take a bunch of shots at it. The point is that the wide receiver position tends to be the higher scoring position. So you want to make sure that you're getting lots and lots of points in your lineup. If T. Higgins becomes available and it looks like he's becoming potentially the number 1 wide receiver, has a path to that, and this is a true underclassman. He was a guy that the production maybe wasn't quite there, but there was also some weird stuff going on with his college offense where they weren't really playing him because they were just so good. He was missing the fourth quarter of the game, and that type of thing definitely hurt him, where you can say, okay, maybe if he's on a different offense, his college production is off the charts. So the upside, well, the floor is lower with T. Higgins. The upside is there. He starts flashing that upside, and we jumped all over it. We made a similar play to get Brandon Ayuk on the team. We stashed Chase Claypool in the Croc Rock team the week before he went off, or maybe 2 weeks ago now. But we made sure to, be early on him. We were taking Jalen Reagor. We were taking Laviska Shenault. As if you watched a single episode of the show, we were getting Laviska Shenault on every team. Making sure to do that because we want to have exposure to wide receivers who can start to deliver more and more points as the season goes on. When you realize, like, man, I don't think Christian Kirk is going to be the guy we had hoped. But now we've got a guy like Laviska Shenault, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins that are able to fill in, and we feel great about starting those guys now.
Blair, no one needs to twist Blair's arm to draft wide receivers. Why do you think? I think people are still maybe just a little bit slow to realize how impactful this specific wide receiver rookie class could be down the stretch.
Oh man, yeah. We've already seen a bunch of these guys start to have breakout seasons. Like Higgins, you mentioned Jefferson is starting to look really good, although he kind of was not that good last week. But I mean, Henry Ruggs had a big game finally. Claypool obviously is huge. Jerry Jeudy has looked great. So, and Lamb, of course. So, I mean, there's just so, we knew this class was deep. And I think the worry maybe was that it wasn't necessarily as top heavy. Like maybe Lamb was a star and the other guys might not be. But so far, it looks like it really is a star-studded class. So, I mean...
Am I off my rocker to say that this class, and I'm not talking long-term, but as far as year one production, is headed to be even better than the 2014 rookie class for year one production?
That's funny you said. This week on Rotoviz Overtime, they asked me to send in a clip for them to react to. You know how they do that?
Yeah.
And that's what I asked them.
Okay.
So Sean and Tom are going to answer that question. Well, they that'll come out Thursday, I think.
And what's your take?
My take is that class had some really lasting talents that is going to be hard to beat. Like Devontae Adams came from that class, Allen Robinson,
but that's not my
Odell
question.
Beckham Jr.
Yeah,
my question is year one production from.
Year one production.
Who was really good? Like you had Mike
Odell
Evans
Beckham.
And Odell crushed.
And
he had a historic season. Yeah.
Jordan Matthews had a breakout rookie year.
And did Landry produce year one?
I think he did.
Yeah,
Cooks was in that class too, and he
was solid.
Kelvin Benjamin,
yeah, he was pretty good. Oh, that's right.
Kelvin Benjamin blew up that first year.
But I feel like if we do this with Shenault, with T. Higgins, with Claypool, with Justin Jefferson, with CD Lamb, I mean, like we're right there with it.
Well, you know who the Odell Beckham could be in this class?
Here we go.
Chase Claypool.
Okay.
I mean, that's the guy they could put up like. We were arguing whether it was Jalen Reagor or Henry Ruggs, but then Claypool comes, he just scored 4 touchdowns. I mean, the whole thing with Beckham is he just had that unbelievable record-breaking rookie season where he's putting up, he's never really topped it. And the guy that, Justin Jefferson, I guess, would be the other guy that's just emerged on the scene, getting huge weeks. Like you said, cooled off a little bit this week. It's tough to see him, with Adam Thielen there in that offense. Hard to see him putting up an Odell Beckham season, but Devontae Adams sucked as a rookie, so you could, you could see this class maybe being even more productive overall, like on an average player thing.
It's just been funny to me every single week, the best waiver wire pickup. And I'm not talking in FFPC. A lot of these guys have been owned, but I'm talking in your 12-team home league with buddies. Like the best waiver wire pick every single week has been rookie wide receivers. Like these guys just keep breaking out all over the place.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So this is going to be fun. And to circle back and put a bow on that thing, this is definitely... You never have enough wide receiver firepower. Like, and you do need to be measured, right? Like Pat and I aren't blowing our entire fab on T. Higgins, but we were willing to be aggressive because even though you can look at your starting lineup in week 3 and be like, yeah, T. Higgins isn't going to sniff our starting lineup. That's great. But what happens when Cortland Sutton's out for the season? What happens when the bye weeks hit? What happens when Christian Kirk isn't making the leap that we hoped? Like you want these breakout wide receivers. And old me, I used to put my head in the sand. And new me last year in a keeper league I have with friends, Terry McLaurin busts out week 1. I'm going heavy on him because I was wrong on him from a pre-draft standpoint. But I've seen enough on the field in 1 week. And in the same way, Pat and Blair, like I don't have any confidence on Travis Fulgham. I don't have any pre-draft takes on him, but I'm adding him where I can because maybe I'm wrong and he's just really fucking good.
Yeah, although I bet we're way low on Travis Fulgham this week in FFPC. For the high stakes leagues, I think if Fulgham ends up being a guy you should have added this year, we might not get any exposure to him because we're going pretty light with our bids.
I'll just say Claypool was only available in one league that I'm in. That's the Football Guys one I'm doing with Dave. And in that league, like I already mentioned, we're light on running back. Our wide receivers are McLaurin, Landry, Boyd, Cooper Kupp, Godwin, Hardman, Slayton, Shenault. I mean, we're loaded. We're loaded at wide receiver. And there's just there's no running backs who are good, who are available. So I'm making a huge bid on Claypool. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
I want him still.
Because again, in his range of outcomes, it is well within the reason that he's a top 10 wide receiver the rest of the season.
Yep.
Who would not go heavy on a top 10 wide receiver the rest of the season? That's not even that outlandish.
Yeah. He got a goal line carry. And he scored.
He's better than all the running backs that we have starting for our team.
Here's a good one. Ruggs or Claypool rest of season. And I know you love Ruggs, Blair. You were higher on Ruggs than a lot of people.
I was. And I mean, to see Ruggs put up, 118 yards and a touchdown on 2 targets, I think he's obviously the sort of player that might be able to do that more often, but you'd really like to see him get more targets closer to the line of scrimmage and stuff, get more usage. So, I mean, rest of season, I think it's got to be Claypool. For as high as I was on Ruggs, seeing Blair. Claypool get the targets and be efficient with them.
Blair, you got to take Ruggs so that I can argue Claypool. Come on, man. I'm not going to argue Ruggs.
To me, like to Pat's point, too, Ruggs to me feels like what we're going to get from Marquise Brown, right? Where he's going to have some monster weeks, but he is going to be consistent. Where Claypool could be what we're seeing from DK Metcalf right now. He could just torch the earth every week the rest of the way out. I would not be surprised.
All right, I'll play devil's advocate, though, because Claypool does have... he's competing for targets with Juju. Deontay Johnson is going to get healthy again and be getting more targets like he was earlier in the season. So I think the 10 targets in a game for Claypool is definitely not sustainable, and you would probably see that come down more. Whereas, often we see these guys who, if they have a breakout game on just a few targets like Ruggs just did, we see them get more targets going forward. So, there are some good reasons to think that the usage trends could kind of flip-flop.
What I love about Claypool is that before this week, he was getting targeted at a really high rate. That's the thing. He was like really popping. If you look at targets per route run, really popping in that stat and not running all that many routes, but just getting targeted at a really high rate. And my thinking is when you see something like that, that's a guy who can get more playing time. Like if I'm looking at a rookie wide receiver who's just getting targeted when he's on the field, then that's a dude who can get on the field more and more. And he was targeted at an extremely high rate this week. As you mentioned, it's going to come down some. He was targeted on 48% of his routes this week. That's absurd. Literally, like half the time he ran a route, he got a target. That doesn't happen. But, he's a guy who's not, I don't think, going to drop down to like a 16, 17% target per route run. And you look at like Juju Smith-Schuster, he's been targeted on 16.4% of his routes this season. It's not been good. He's not been able to get targets. He's been getting targeted at a much lower rate than Deontay Johnson, who's also up at 28%. So, Johnson was out competing with Juju for targets. Then Claypool comes in. He's out competing Juju for targets. I'm pretty worried about Juju. For dynasty purposes, keep in mind that Juju's a free agent after the year, so things could get a little ugly. I think if Juju has a good game here coming up, might be a good time to shop around, see if you can get out with, at good value on Juju and Dynasty. Not panicking, but I do think you should at least be price checking him soon. And Chase Claypool, I think, playing that outside wide receiver role, which is really, that's where Deontay Johnson was. Seems like for whatever reason, that's, maybe it's just a player thing, maybe it's a scheme thing. I don't know, but when I see a guy getting a lot of targets and then he's playing more running more routes, it's really exciting. And the other thing about Claypool is he only ran in this game on 66% of dropbacks. He ran a route. So this came in like a part-time role. He wasn't running 85, 90% of routes. So you could see his target per route run drop substantially, but his routes actually increase this week.
Yeah, I guess the question is when you have Deontay Johnson coming back, because he didn't play most of this game.
Right.
Is there really an expectation that Claypool is going to be able to get those routes with,
I think so, because I think he'll get him over James Washington. who he was out there. He ran around on 91% of dropbacks. I don't think James Washington's going to play over Claypool at this point.
This makes me laugh. Henry Muto. I share a team with one guy. I just opened our FFPC bids. He has $449 on the Philly wide receiver. Henry Muto. Even the FFPC grinders need to experience the joy of co-managing and logging in and seeing a bid and being like, what the fuck? Davis, you want to bet $350 on Andy Dalton? What is wrong with you?
Davis just going, guys, we need to go hard on Andy Dalton. Like, no, we don't. No, we don't, Davis.
This was we can do this one. Let's do this one. We can get our hands in the dirt here. Time to revisit the process with guys like Kirk and Harry failing. I will just say the whole reason we take shots on wide receiver after wide receiver is we are making probability bets on guys that have the prospect profile or align with the offense or the athletic talent to explode, and preferably younger guys, rookie, second-year breakouts, and they are not all going to hit. Otherwise, second-year wide receivers would all go in the first 5 rounds. They would all be DK Metcalf, but they aren't, and so we're taking bets on them, and not all of them are going to hit. How do you guys think about this question as far as it pertains to these guys not panning out so far?
Go ahead, Blair.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I'm not quite ready to give up on them quite yet. You know, especially a guy like Kirk, who has actually been pretty good when he's been healthy and has been able to get targets. I mean, this year you kind of knew he was going to have a hard time with new competition from Hopkins. I think there were question marks about the New England offense with Tom Brady leaving. So there were some reasons before the season to kind of be cautious about these guys, and we're kind of seeing those worries come to fruition. But I'm not necessarily panicking, especially on Kirk yet. Harry, I think, in a shallow league is definitely droppable.
Well, I guess what I would say is, like, what process should we be adjusting? Because our whole process is to take a bunch of wide receivers early. So we're actually not counting on Christian Kirk and N'Keal Harry. What we're doing is we're taking Christian Kirk and N'Keal Harry because we think these guys have very high ceilings compared to the other wide receivers in that range. We're not taking Golden Tate to get, startable points. We're taking guys who might be able to leapfrog guys that we took in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round and actually start for us every week. So we're actually taking on more risk intentionally. The other thing I'd say is that Harry is not actually failing. Like he's had, he hasn't been an awesome start, but he certainly looks like a guy who down the stretch could be plugged into our starting lineups pretty easily. And Kirk is coming off a decent week. So, I'm with Blair. I'm not giving up on him. So I don't know. I guess, should we take more wide receivers early? Is that your point?
Ben Gretch, defend N'Keal Harry and Christian Kirk right now.
I thought they were doing a pretty good job of discussing them. How you guys doing?
What's up, Ben?
Doing good.
I had some waivers to do, grabbed a beer, saw you guys were on, figured I'd come hang out.
That's what we want here. The ship chasing open door policy. I actually thought this might be fun to do now that 10 o'clock process. I haven't hit refresh on some of our bids here, so I feel fine showing you guys what we did here. Let's tab over to Robust RG here. Did these end up being our final bids, Ben? Did you get your hands in the muck here at all?
I didn't. I thought those were fine. I looked at them and I was like, I don't really care. I heard you guys talking
about, buddy.
I heard you guys talking about
in the time.
I heard you guys talking about Fulgham a little bit ago, and Pete, you seemed really excited, and Pat was like, "Yeah, well, we're probably not going to get him anywhere." That's kind of where I was at. I went about this range in most of my leagues. I went even cheaper in my other main event that's not with you guys, and I mean, I don't know. He's probably going to go a lot more than anywhere where I'll get him, but I think he might be one of those guys that. It's just a flash in the pan by the end of the season is my concern. I get your point as well, Pete, where you're saying you could be wrong on the pre-draft eval and all those things. And we've seen him pop now, but all their receivers were out. Right. So there is context sometimes.
For sure.
And a lot of the guys are coming back now.
Right.
And then you've got Goddard and Rager coming back later. So it could,
And what you're trying to weigh, right, is like what is opportunity driven versus what kind of talent could earn more opportunity going forward. And we're trying to having to balance that. Let's see what we had in the quad here. The quad. So this is a guy we were trying to add, Pat, was Royce Freeman here under the assumption that Melvin Gordon might not play. Pat and Blair, what do you guys think about Royce Freeman here? We're trying to sneak Darrington Evans back. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was pushing for Royce Freeman. I've been on that train for a while.
Yeah, I remember that. I definitely like Freeman here, and we saw back when it was just him and Lindsey, he was getting a lot of the kind of receiving work in this backfield, so that could be a potentially valuable role with no Melvin Gordon.
Well, I remember reading somewhere that it's like important to get touches inside the 10 or something. I don't know. Brendan, do you know anything about that?
I've heard it. Yeah. But yeah, Freeman last year was a guy that in signals I remember writing about along with Miles Sanders early in the year. There were two guys that when you look at the high value touches that I like to look at, I was super excited about as buy lows when they weren't doing well early, but they were getting this type of usage. And if Gordon was out of the backfield, like Blair said, Freeman would run all the routes. He would be that high value touch guy that then if Lindsey were to, continue to be banged up at all, that guy then moves into a 3-down role and already has the receiving work. That can be super, super valuable. It worked for Sanders last year. Very much did not work for Freeman last year, but I think he's interesting now too for those reasons.
And
we could be looking at a suspension here for Gordon.
Yeah, it's easy to forget because he hasn't been that great. But when Freeman was coming out, we were like talking about him as like a poor man's David Johnson or Le'Veon Bell with the size and agility. So
and like 60 college touchdowns. I mean, he was a massive producer.
Yep.
So Pat and I did lose Dak Prescott on two of our best teams, our main event. We went, we did try to get Matthew Stafford, and then we also did a contingency bid to try to get Andy Dalton. We were willing to get both of these guys. Pat, maybe talk people through how we were thinking about this quarterback situation.
Yeah, so when we have Dak Prescott, obviously, he does provide that elite ceiling that I was talking about. And now we're in a position where we probably should have been looking to add another quarterback anyway. Pete and I had talked about after this announcement that now the NFL is going to be doing testing on game day, we don't want to be exposed to just one quarterback because you could see, I don't know when the announcements of the positive tests are going to come back, but I imagine it might be after 10 o'clock in the morning when the FFPC waiver wire has already run. So it's pretty risky at this point to just carry one quarterback. So we were already thinking, it'd be nice to have two. And if we were able to get Stafford and Dalton, that would give us the opportunity to play the matchups between the two a little bit as well, because those are both good options going forward. But at the same time, we didn't want to break the bank because we have 643 remaining in Fab heading into this week. It would be really nice to have like enough to where if we wanted to unload like a $450 bid, if a running back becomes available, that we could still do that. So we were kind of still being a little bit cheap with our ads here. We have some contingent bids in case we don't get either guy. We could get like a Fitzpatrick and work through this week with still a startable guy at the position.
Yeah, we were in a similar spot with Davis in our ship-taking league. This team is set up really nicely. We also 4-1, lost Dak Prescott. Andy Dalton, Ryan Tannehill was available. Fitzpatrick's available. So, again, I mentioned at the top of the show, we're looking at the other teams in the league, and most teams have covered themselves at QB. They're either carrying two quarterbacks, they have Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson. The sense of urgency isn't going to be there. So you're trying to temper your sense of urgency of like, oh my God, I just lost my stud quarterback. Let's plug the hole with, hey, what are my opponents doing? Do I need to empty the clip on these guys? We ended up erring on the side of like, hey, if we miss out on Dalton, that sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Let's get Tannehill. The thing that's a little different in ship taking is we do just have CeeDee Lamb. I think he can easily produce independently of Dalton. In our main event team, though, we have the double stack with Lamb and Gallup. And if Dalton ends up being solid or above average for that home stretch, weeks 14 through 16, when we can't make waiver wire claims, it'd be nice to have access to the Andy Dalton double stack, which who knew we would be saying a phrase like access to the Andy Dalton double stack, but here we are.
Did not expect to hear Andy Dalton double stack at any point this year. Yeah, and that's partly why we try to get both quarterbacks on this squad. It's also, we had an easier drop on this squad than we did with ship taking. Ship taking is it's our best team, and it scored the most points. It's really strong, and we didn't have another drop.
All right, Pat, this one we didn't get Dalton, but we did get Stafford here.
Beautiful.
So that goes there. I think the mains process a little sooner, so let's check this one here.
Royce.
We did get Royce here.
Royce. Nice.
Yep. All right. I assume the other ones will take a second to process, but we can see here how robust OG did. That'll probably take a second. We'll have to come back to that one. But good to know on our main event teams. Happy to plug in Stafford for Prescott there.
Yeah, and we were looking at his schedule going forward, and it really lightens up. And he's also gotten Galladay now back healthy, who I think is the key to that offense. So I'm excited about Stafford as a guy who can kind of fill the immediate hole, and we'll be looking to see if we can get another high upside guy on the roster at some point.
I got to go pee. I'm going to throw this one to Ben Gretch. How long to hold guys like Duke Johnson or Zach Moss, who seem clearly better than incumbents and could be league winners? I want to hear Blair's take as well.
I mean, it's obviously dependent on, format, league size, all that stuff. If we're talking, FFPC, these types of leagues, I'm going to hold them as, I'm not cutting Zach Moss anytime soon. I'm Duke Johnson, maybe to a lesser degree, because he's an older back that's never really gotten that 3-down workload. Maybe there's something there why no team or no coach has ever given him that opportunity. Maybe he's a guy that you'd let go, but I'm certainly not letting Zach Moss go anytime soon. I think part of the reason you are on guys like Moss is the potential for the Miles Sanders type situation that we just talked about late in the season. I think you should be adding more of those dudes as the season goes along, and as you get more clarity in your receiver depth chart and your tight end depth chart, your bench should be shifting more towards more speculative running backs. I hold these guys till the end of the season. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends for me on the rest of the roster construction. Like if you're in a position where you need to start a guy like Duke Johnson, or you might, then obviously you want to hold on to him. I'm not sure he necessarily has as much upside as some other guys. Like he's a guy who, if I were strong at running back, I might consider dropping for a stash like Benjamin or something.
Does seem to. I feel like for some reason I don't like Duke Johnson very much personally, but Davis was trying to get us to drop him in ship taking. So like all of a sudden,
one time we had some beers. I was not a big fan of him personally.
But like now I'm like defending Duke Johnson all of a sudden, and I don't feel good about it. But here we are. Like he's the only other back they use, and he's a pass catcher, and David Johnson like isn't all that good. Like if he were to tweak his ankle. Like, even if you were to tweak his ankle and just not, like, look that great anymore, they just fired the guy that traded for him. They could just be like, you know what? We're going with Duke. We're going with Duke from now on if Johnson's bulky for 2 weeks. So I think Duke Johnson has a lot of upside, and there's not that many running backs right now with just, like, clear contingent value where we're like, who else is even there? Like, they would almost have to go with him. So
I totally agree. How long would you hold? You'd hold them
like
as
all
long
season.
as it takes.
Yeah, because if I needed to, I can plug in Duke Johnson. In an FFPC league where I got the 10 bench spots, like I have no interest in dropping Duke Johnson. I mean, if we get like right to the end of the season and it looks like, okay, he's not going to pass David Johnson, and maybe like there's some other running back play that I'm really excited about, or we need to fill in at a quarterback or tight end or something, and I have to cut Duke Johnson, fine. But for the most part, I mean, he's the type of guy I want to have stashed.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Romeo Crennel did say as much, that Johnson might, kind of be the hot hand going forward. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I've been hard to get behind Duke Johnson kind of as a player this season, just because we have not ever seen him have this kind of high upside role. But I guess there's no reason he couldn't if David Johnson got hurt. So, yeah.
Why does everyone hate Duke Johnson? This is his whole problem.
Yeah.
Like every time in the real NFL,
on him, Pat. Like honestly, he shouldn't be looked at this way. He is their only other back. He catches passes. Like it's not a great offense for high value touches and all that. Like Deshaun always creates in their green zone. They don't really put the ball in running back's hands, but he's caught some short touchdowns before. He is someone like kind of like that Kareem Hunt stuff that we've been seeing in Cleveland so far this year. There's some possibilities for that if he's actually in a 3-down role that it has some more touchdown potential than maybe what we've seen from David Johnson because they're using him more versatilely. I don't know, but I think he should be thought of a lot more positively than he is. It's just that everyone is sick of the same conversation with Duke Johnson for like a half decade that maybe this will be the year he gets a 3-down workload.
I know.
It's funny because he's always in these backfields with another guy like Carlos Hyde or like David Johnson this year, who's obviously a lot worse than him. And
right.
And he had this big role, this 3-down role at in college. Miami he went? I can't remember. But in any case, but he's never been able to kind of capitalize on this potential and kind of take his efficiency and turn it into like actual fantasy scoring. And I'm sure that's probably, has to do with a lot of the coaches he's
because they keep playing worse guys over him. Like every time he's out on the field, he plays well. And then like, cool, Duke, we don't need you anymore. We're going to, here's Carlos Hyde. Here's the ghost of David Johnson.
Yeah, so we're like holding his coaches against him or something.
Pat, let's hear your take on this one. You've been Pat sends me all of these breathless messages. Dude, Trey Burton. Trey Burton's so sick. Trey Burton is our generation's Rob Gronkowski meets Mark Andrews meets Travis Kelce. Pat, defend Trey Burton.
Oh, God. Now it's Trey Burton ASMR. I felt much better when it's Jalen Reagor ASMR. Yeah, dude, like Trey Burton, like, no, we didn't go big for Burton because we got Burton last week, dude. We're ahead. We got the week before the week. Yeah, no, we snuck him on the rosters. I think we did bid on him in a bunch of the football guys where he was available, but we got him in both main events already. I'm excited about Trey Burton. The whole, get the guys who get targeted at a high rate, and then if they get playing time, then you've got a star on your hands idea. That's Trey Burton. Trey Burton has been getting targeted at a high rate, and now he's getting more and more routes, and I'm excited about that. I think Jack Doyle is dust, and I think Mo Alley-Cox can play, but he's getting the Duke Johnson treatment, so I'll take the guy they're actually putting on the field, and Trey Burton is delivering. He looks really good. This is an offense that we know could really use some playmakers. They've just been beset by injuries. They lost Michael Pittman. They lost Paris Campbell. So, and Hilton looks like he might be pretty much done. So, yeah, I think there's plenty of targets here if Burton can get on the field a bit more. The concern with Burton is that he's still not running a full slate of routes, even for a tight end. So you would like to see him get on the field more. But Jack Doyle is still out there some. And so it's pretty easy to see where those routes might come from. So, and again, he's playing really well, and it would kind of all fit with logic that he would get more and more time. Jack Doyle this week ran a route on 47% of dropbacks. Trey Burton was at 53%. Trey Burton targeted on 33% of his routes. Jack Doyle just on 13% of his. So pretty clear who the better pass catcher is here in my mind. Hopefully Indianapolis coaching stats agrees.
And they seem to be using him more like a receiver, right? Like I played him in DFS actually last week for all the reasons you just said. Not necessarily a great play.
You played him in DFS last week? You're sick. I love it.
Yeah, it was like 2,900.
Yeah, I love it. I love punting tight end.
And it was the Adam Troutman play. I had to go back to it. But he caught most of those balls late when they were trailing. He was the reason I bring that up is he was pretty bad for most of the game, and then he got like 3 or 4 balls in the fourth quarter and actually got to like 8 points. But that is, I think, interesting in terms of role. Like they were in a pass situation, and he's the guy that was out there running the routes and being targeted. So they see him as like kind of a receiver.
Speaking of punt tight ends, I touted it on the Swolecast after reading Stealing Signals, Ben. I'm touting Tanner Hudson at the Stone at 2,500 this week. I mean, I like the game environment. Has one of the highest totals on the week, Green Bay. Yeah, but Ben Gretch told me he's playing the OJ Howard role. I said,
no. He got the air yards that Howard got, but he's not running as many routes as Howard. I already got the
OJ Howard role. I already touted him. I have the Ben Gretch shield of approval.
No, he doesn't have the full role. I wrote that poorly.
Man, you've been very clear that you don't remember what you write in Stealing Signals.
I know, I don't. But I know that I wrote that Cameron Brate played similar snap share, but the point I was trying to make is don't buy into Cameron Brate because Tanner Hudson's running the downfield routes and getting some air yards, but Hudson only ran routes on 23% of dropbacks. I think the Stoneman tight end is Irv Smith this week if you really want to go there.
Yeah, people are talking about Irv Smith in the chat. Let's hear it. Let's do it. Hadn't done much up until this point. Blair, where are you at on Irv Smith?
I love Irv Smith. He's frustrating to own or to play in DFS. So, I mean, I'm going to go there, I'm sure, but I don't know. I know it's going to be bad.
Someone said the football guy
win you a GPP this week.
Are through. So let's check here. So we added, this is in robust OG. It looks like we missed out on Fulgham, but we got Ryan Fitzpatrick, which is always, it seems like he's the only ad there.
It's week 6. That is a week 6 sentence right there. We missed out on Fulgham, but we got Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I mean, great locker room presence. Got the veteran presence on our bench.
Look at this quad bench. Naked QB, naked tight end. We have 2, 4, 6, 7 running backs. We do add Royce Freeman to the mix. I mean, this is the most quad bench ever. How many teams in the FFPC? These grinders say they love running backs. How many of them have 9 running backs on their team?
This is a beautiful roster. I like this.
Let's see how we.
Live by the running back depth, die by the running back depth, I guess.
There we go. With Sean and Column, it looks like we added Derek Carr to cover us next week.
Oh, shit. Oh, good. All right.
Oh, shit? Why are you saying oh, shit?
Well, because I thought we'd had a Derek Carr bid in for Jalen Reagor dropping, but I forgot we deleted that bid. So that's good. That means
holy shit, dude. In ship taking with Davis, we got squeezed. We did not get Dalton and we did not get Tannehill. We have Ryan Fitzpatrick, which means after this week, we have to go back to the drawing board with quarterback. Davis is going to kill me. He's going to go, dude, I told you we should have gotten 120 for Dalton.
It's funny because we actually brought Davis on a call. Like Pete and I were doing like a little pre-StreamYard. And we had bids in that were twice as high for both guys. And we talked Davis down to having both bids.
Davis is going to kill me.
He's going to be real pissed.
He's going to kill me. Oh, man. This is like earlier in the season, we did an underdog draft on the Swolecast, and he was wanting to reach like 2 rounds ahead to get his guys. I'd be like, dude, we can get Antonio Gibson in round 9. And he goes in round 8. And Davis like, I told you, dude.
Oh, we got to get Davis on.
See if Davis is around.
So
give him a call. See if we can hear that outgoing voicemail.
Davis is tucked into his like race car size bunk bed by this time.
Davis has bunk beds and he just uses the top bunk. No one uses the bottom.
Yeah. So it's hard to tell right now. I do want to see how much guys like Fulgham and those guys went for, but I don't think those bid reports fully process until tomorrow here.
Well, I want to see if a quarterback was dropped because we might be shit out of luck there.
Don't tell Davis that. Here, okay, we'll look at the transactions here. Okay, that's all of us. Because I'm logged in, I gotta.
I'm trying to look at it and it says the bid report is disabled. So
no, but you can see the transactions.
Oh, the transactions. All right, 1 second. A few bids.
While Pat looks this up. How far are you guys dropping Ertz at this point? Who are some of the tight ends you would start over him? Let's go to Gretch here. Ertz's yards per target is absurd right now, Ben.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job of not getting to 10 yards 2 weeks in a row on 5 or more targets. I don't think I've ever seen a stat line like that. It's pretty impressive. And he actually caught 5 of the 11 targets he saw, but still somehow did not get to 10 yards in either game. I'm not dropping him that far. I actually kind of think. I mean, I'm certainly lowering him a little bit, but I kind of think that some of this is related to all their wide receiver woes. He's not good enough to beat more attention. Obviously, Fulgham had room to run last week, right? So you think about it like scheme-wise, what was Philly trying to take away? I think pretty clearly they weren't going to let Ertz have like a 15-catch game or whatever. But then they got beat because of that down the field. But at some point, Philly's going to either have their healthy receivers back or Fulgham's going to be good. They're going to have something that gets back to the scheme that they want to run, which has always been vertical wide receiver routes, and then Ertz, operates underneath when the safeties get drawn back. I mean, like scheme wise, what Ertz does well has not been there for them. So I'm almost like I'm not completely writing it off. I know that he obviously looks very dusty and he looks very old, but I also kind of am like giving him a little bit of a pass for these last couple games, 2 road games, not good spots necessarily. I don't know.
Blair,
let's go. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Blair, Ertz is in the air yards by low model this week. Josh Hermsmeyer has put his contrarian stamp of approval on the play, although they get Baltimore this week. Where are you at on Ertz?
I think I'm mostly with Ben. I'm not dropping him that far down my rankings. I mean, this offense has not been great, so I think you can chalk a lot of the way he's played up to kind of their struggles, although there are obviously some questions about whether they're going to be able to turn it around. So, I mean, on teams that I own him, I'm still starting him, unless I have Kelsey or Waller or Kittle, or I might start someone like Hawkinson over him. But
Blair just keeps listing all of it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put him down that far.
What about John?
I would definitely start John over him personally.
Yeah.
What about Tanner Hudson?
You're talking my language.
Somewhere between John and Tanner Hudson.
I pulled
Pat,
up
what were
John
you gonna
Paulson's
say?
ratings. I pulled up his weekly rankings to see where he had Ertz. He has Ertz at tight end 6, which I think is more of an indictment of the tight end position than it is an endorsement of Ertz. But he has guys like Mike Gesicki, Evan Ingram, Robert Tonyan, Eric Ebron, Noah Fant, Dalton Schultz, Austin Hooper, all behind him. To me, like those guys are all in the conversation. Like if we had Ertz and one of those guys, it would be tough.
What's the spread on his projected points from Ertz to those guys? It has to be within like 1.5 projected points, right?
In PPR points, it's like it's at most 2 points.
Yeah, it's close.
I was going to ask about what you guys thought about Ertz versus Tonyan, because that is an interesting one where I think in both cases you're not sure whether to trust the last few games entirely,
Gretch?
I would probably still lean Ertz, but Tonyan is obviously looked great. I think Rodgers is just so he locks into players so much now. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have a little bit of confirmation bias because I've been saying that for a while, and I feel like I'm seeing that. But like I played a lot of Tonyan in Showdown, or I guess it was the 2-game Monday night slate, the game where he scored 3 touchdowns because he was a guy that Rodgers was already throwing to a little, and it's like he only throws to guys he's familiar with, and Lazard was out and everyone else was out. And I didn't think MVS could necessarily be the number one. But my point there is my concern with Tonyan is as soon as Adams comes back, it just goes back to Adams and Aaron Jones, like it was in week 1, like it was most of last year, where it's just like basically the offense runs through 2 guys, and he's just targeting these dudes at an absurd rate. Like targets per route run, great stat that Pat always references. Both those guys were over 30% when I looked at that. I didn't look at this week yet, but the week before last. And so you're just talking about an offense that could be super, concentrated, and then he's like the 3rd guy, and that could be okay. But I would still maybe take Ertz over Tonyan for that reason.
I think he could even be the 4th guy because MVS has this very kind kind of distinct role where he's the deep threat guy. And that's been the case, like regardless of all the chaos around them, MVS has been used with the very consistent deep threat ADOT. He has been in that role. I think when Adams comes back, that's definitely going to be the case. And Rodgers has been going to him a fair amount. So, maybe there isn't enough to go around for Tanyan. If I was looking at Ertz and Tanyan, I would be trying to figure out what I'm trying to do. If I have a really strong team and I'm just like, I want some points out of my tight end position, I'm plugging in Ertz. But if I need any kind of ceiling, I'd plug in Tanyan because Ertz has just not shown any kind of ceiling in a situation where you would be like, Ertz is going to smash. There's no wide receivers here. He's the only guy who has like a long-term connection with Wentz, and he's just completely disappointed. It's been atrocious. I feel like I'm not going to get burned that hard if I bench Ertz, where I could see Tanyan, having a much higher game.
That's the part where I'm like, I'm hemming and hawing a lot, but that's the part where I think I disagree a little bit because I do think we could see a 12 target, 10 catch Ertz game this week. Like I think that's possible.
Yeah.
I still think that.
I do too. For 6.
No, and I'm not saying like as a
just say
big,
fuck you, Pat. Just say it. Fuck you, Pat.
But no, I do think like I don't know. It's just it seems like it could swing back for Ertz. He looks so bad right now, but
I mean, how many yards is he getting in that 10 catch game?
Right, he's not going to do much.
I said 60 as a joke, but I think it's not a lot.
Hey Blair, can I see this whiskey snifter you're drinking at? This is just the most elitist glass I've ever seen. What are you drinking? What's this glass?
This is actually an old fashioned. It's not the right glass for what I'm drinking. This is called a Glencairn glass, mostly for scotch, but good for anything.
You're classy, man. I'm just over here drinking Coors Lights like the common man.
I thought of what I was going to say about Ertz. And I'm going to swing it back to DFS again. And I thought you guys made a good point that all those guys right behind him could be like basically the same range of outcomes weekly right now, right? Like we think there could be some ceiling or a lot of floor. Like I think we're all kind of on the same page on that. And in DFS right now, the way I feel about Ertz is he's still priced kind of high because that's where he's always been priced. I'm not going to touch him because there are so many guys cheaper than him that I think have the same range of outcomes. So he doesn't make a lot of, unless you're like totally just for a contrarian play. But like in a scenario like that, when we're talking about, okay, he's still ranked at tight end 6 in John Paulson's rankings you were talking about, like that, if you're looking at a scenario like DFS where that his price is still higher because of that type of a thing, doesn't make sense in that format, right? Like right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that has no value. Like we were saying, they're all kind of close.
I think sometimes DFS almost like lowers the value in our mind of guys like Ertz, where you're like, you're overpriced, you're dead to me.
Yeah.
Well, that dovetails perfectly into the Juju Smith-Schuster conversation because he's in that same boat where he is overpriced for DFS relative to what his role has been. But where are we at on Juju right now? Because he's a tricky one.
Yeah, I don't know. I talked about him in singles this week, but it's not just like he's not seeing any air yards, right? He's seeing all these underneath targets, and it's also a drop in target share. So I was kind of theorizing that, and I think it's pretty clear that you have this drop in ADOT and you have this drop in target share. He's just not seeing the intermediate and downfield targets. He's still seeing essentially the same rate of targets on his underneath routes that he was before, or maybe it's not the same. I don't know. I haven't broken down the stats by depth, but I'm assuming that it's relatively similar. It's just that he's not winning down the field at all. And either he's not healthy enough to win down the field, or he's not running as many routes on the field, or the other receivers are just better. I'm not sure, but I think it might still be a health thing. He's been having some knee issues, but it's weird because he's running so many routes. 3 out of the 4 weeks, he's run routes on 97% of the dropbacks or more. 2 of them, it was 100%. One was 97%. The other one was 87%. I mean, he's running a ton of routes. So
yeah, it doesn't really make sense if he's not healthy because he's out there all the time.
Right. It's not like rotating at all. They're putting out there every play.
What do you think at this point? Like if all guys are healthy, does James Washington get relegated to the bench, or are they going to rotate 4 guys?
I think Washington goes to the bench personally.
Yeah,
or at least Washington rotates in some for Claypool.
Right.
But
They're the guys that are playing the same role. I don't think it's going to impact Johnson I kind of agree with Blair's comment earlier on Claypool that, he might end up. I think he does have like a lead upside. He could just be amazing, right? But he might also just end up being third on the team. Like we don't really know. But if you asked about Juju in leagues where I have him, where I'm deep at receiver, which we all draft similar teams, we have some leagues like that. He's the one that I'm very comfortable sitting right now until I see some air yards. Like I usually just keep playing him, but I'm probably going to sit him anywhere I can. Basically, anywhere I have a reasonable option, I'm going to probably sit him for a little while.
Yeah, Blair.
Yeah, I agree.
Paulson he's ranking Juju still fairly aggressively this week, but that's under the assumption that Deontay Johnson is out. What is your take on Juju?
So I was just looking at the GLSP on RotoViz. It has Juju as the wide receiver 46 this week, which is
not good.
Yeah. Claypool, by comparison, is the wide receiver 17 in GLSP.
Wow.
So that's pretty interesting. I mean, I think if I had one criticism about the GLSP calculations, it's that they give a little too much weight to recent games.
Oh shit, GLSP, did you just hear that? Oh.
But still, I mean, this is like an objective, computer telling us what it thinks is going to happen, and I hate going against the computer.
I love it. I don't know why. I trust it, but I love being like, no, this thing's stupid. I'm so much smarter than it. The human element.
I really like at this point in the season, the GLSP starts to just be magic to me.
As someone, I lost in a dynasty league. I lost Dak Prescott, and I have a trade offer to receive Ben Roethlisberger in my inbox. If we love all of these Pittsburgh wide receivers, is Ben Roethlisberger going to finish the season really strong?
He's looking pretty good. Pretty good.
I feel good about him. There's some concern that his ADOT's been falling a little bit. It was at its highest.
One of the RotoWorld guys mentioned that.
Yeah, it was at its highest when they were trailing by double digits in the Houston game. That's the game where he posted an ADOT over 8. That's his one higher ADOT game. They've won every game, and they haven't trailed by more than a touchdown in any of the other 3 games. So you're going to be a little bit more conservative with the ball in those scenarios. And then last week, you're talking about an average depth, but they went downfield to Claypool. It's just every time they went downfield, they got caught for a touchdown. So if you throw in completions down the field, maybe you go downfield some more. You have longer down and distances. But if you have Chase Claypool just catching a touchdown every time you throw it down the field, then your average depth might be a little lower because you only threw.
You don't need to throw it anymore.
Yeah. Now we'll just throw some short passes and then touchdown. You only threw a couple deep shots because they all went for TDs.
Yeah. All right. Everyone wants to talk about Le'Veon Bell. He gets released from the Jets. Everyone's speculating. Apparently, he liked a tweet from the Arrowhead Pride Twitter account with a thinking emoji.
I bet he's liking every tweet they send.
Yeah. Blair, the betting markets as set by Blair Andrews, where do you think Le'Veon is most likely to land?
I guess the one that I've seen that makes the most sense is Chicago. Yeah. So I'm going to go with that.
Ben?
I kind of want to see Kansas City. I'm sorry, but I kind of do.
In a watch the world burn kind of way, or yeah?
I think it would be pretty funny.
Pat, where do you want to see Bell?
At this point, I think Denver.
Okay.
Just put the 2 dead zone running backs together.
Yeah, Chicago does make the most logical sense. I swear to God, if these dead zone running back drafters suck out on Fournette to Tampa Bay and Bell,
I haven't really sucked that one out yet.
That's the thing. They suck out on paper, and then they still flop because these dudes fucking suck and are washed up. Jesus Christ.
I know.
Has there been, in my mind, has there been one of these quote-unquote washed guys that we've been wrong about? AJ Green, T.Y. Hilton, Zach Ertz, Le'Veon Bell, Leonard Fournette. Is there a washed guy that has proved us wrong?
Well, Todd Gurley would like to have a word, but I still think he should sit back down.
Yeah. Adrian Peterson, maybe?
Okay.
He's just destroying everyone else's value.
Yeah.
I'm not buying Todd Gurley at all. I think last week was just the Panther defense, and he has 2 longest runs of the year and whatever. But
I'm playing the shit out of David Montgomery. I can tell you that.
There's got to be some old guys doing well, right? Oh, Adam Thielen is a guy that I didn't draft because he was over 30, and
That's a good one. Thielen's crushing.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good one.
That's the
I
one.
I knew that was that old, but he feels old, so I never draft Chris Carson.
He does old.
Yeah, the chat is mentioning, and I agree with this, Devonta Freeman's role keeps growing here. He could be a thing.
Yeah. No, you feel pretty good about him in the 3rd round, I'd say. Not that different.
I'm too drunk to even remember, where was Devonta Freeman even going in season-long drafts? I can't even remember.
Late. Super
late.
late.
Yeah.
Okay. What team was he on?
He wasn't on a team.
He was inside.
He was a free agent.
Yeah,
It's been a long. Yeah.
Have you been doing a drinking game? I didn't know.
Every night I play a drinking game. Oh my goodness. Chris wants to know, you guys touching Thielen next year? That's a long way out, and I will just say no.
I already traded him in Dynasty this offseason because I think you should try to trade a year early. It's just kind of like you make that decision, you're done with that guy. If he keeps beating me this year, that's fine, but like his value is not going up any higher in Dynasty, even though he's doing great right now. It's just not falling, but it will fall.
Yeah,
eventually.
Yeah, you'd rather get out early.
You'd definitely rather get out early. You get to these guys where they're just like, they have to put up elite numbers just to maintain their value. You don't want to make that bet. That's a bad bet.
Yeah.
So Chris says, shout out to X being undefeated. This is from the ship taking draft.
X's team is so sick. I'm actually thinking we draft like this next year.
So X right now 5-0, ship taking right behind him at 4-1. We do have more points. We do have the objectively better team here at 63 more points. But
I mean,
X,
that was the best draft for your strategy all offseason because you had one guy that refused to take a receiver until the end of the draft.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, let's I should
go X team. You being in a league together really was kind of mutually beneficial for both of you.
It was. He was probably so psyched.
He X draft here, man. He even loses Eckler. He's gonna lose Gordon here. Although he handcuffed him with Lindsey. That's why X is so sharp.
5 tight ends before a receiver.
Dude cranked it purple so hard, man.
Yeah, he really did.
So purple.
When you take Travis Kelce and then Hunter Henry in the 7th, you have to get 3 more tight
Robbie
ends.
Anderson. That's it. That's the pick. All you gotta do is hit Robbie Anderson. That's what we always say.
Yeah.
Dude, that's actually a filthy draft now that he got Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson in the 16th.
Tight ends. You only have to start 2 receivers. You got Robbie Anderson. It's literally all of our zero RB arguments in reverse, and he actually.
Yeah, this is the robust RB thesis right here. 5-0.
The key. The key here was the early kicker, though, right?
Oh yeah, lock in
the early kicker.
Blair loves the early kicker. Isn't this why fantasy's so gross? Like literally, Robbie Anderson and Mark Ingram's ADP should be flipped. Like Robbie Anderson is like, and even that is too late.
That's actually an insult to Robbie, dude.
What? Yeah, Robbie. If we redraft right now, Robbie Anderson goes what, mid-3rd?
Yeah, I would say like the 3rd, 4th turn. Like probably the early 4th actually, because like I don't know, that maybe around where like Kupp and Thielen and Brown are here.
Yeah. That feels high for me. I think
high.
Yeah,
I don't know, dude. He's getting a lot of volume.
Want Robbie over like Tyler Boyd,
right? Like that kind of those kind of guys I was thinking of. Like
Fuller, Robbie over Tyler Boyd.
I think I would take Fuller over Robbie.
I would too, but Fuller I think is like a 3rd, 4th round.
You think he is? Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to think how many receivers are still not hurt, and like where they would all fall.
Look, I mean, it makes so. We just did the FFWS best ball draft starting with week 6, and Robbie Anderson went here in round 6.
So he should go higher than that.
That was a steal by Waz.
Yeah, that was a good pick. Yeah.
Yeah, and Waz, Ben, you had a lot of stuff to say about Waz's draft. So
I know. I was talking so much, man. I love you, Waz.
Oh my god! I mean, Pat, we took DJ Moore in the 4th round. That was before this week's game, but
yeah, we probably should Should have taken Robbie, huh?
Although we're in
it's kinda
second
crazy.
place, so you know.
Yeah, I think we're like a point behind Ben, right? Ben and Leone.
Me and Leone.
Yeah, they luck boxed.
And what I like about this thing,
It was all the muting during the draft. You know, we really had our strategy on point.
I'm so mad at you guys for trying to do content. You come on the stream and then you mute. Like, that is the whole point.
Just for a moment.
Holy shit! This is one of the most savage comments I've ever seen. I'm legitimately offended. Can't wait to see where John, Trent Richardson, Taylor will go next year.
There's a little bit of a buzz going around now that he's like not broken enough tackles and all these like running back stats that people love about, how we can tell that running backs are good, evaded tackles, whatever it is, yards after contact. I mean, whatever. Jonathan Taylor's going to smash. I still buy it.
Wow. Permar 99. Wow, I didn't even know this thought was a thing. Like, we're ready to throw in the towel on Jonathan Taylor after 6
I'm already radicalized. I don't want any parts of Jonathan Taylor now.
It's getting floated on Twitter that Taylor's a bust already.
Gee, I need to send out some trade offers,
I know.
man.
Yeah, me too, dude.
Goodness. Oh my.
Catch that falling knife.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about here?
No.
Losing steam?
What are you drinking tonight, Pete? You got a Modelo?
I had a Coors Light, and then before that, I had a Coors Light, and then before that, I had a Coors Light that I actually haven't opened yet.
Oh, nice.
Hammer.
Wednesday nights are for the boys. Blair, any topics you want to talk about? You've been writing the weekly column about expected points on RotoViz. Justin Herbert, a surprise addition to the expected points column. Give the people some Justin Herbert takes.
Yeah, Justin Herbert is like one of the best rookie quarterbacks through the first 5 weeks that we've seen. Maybe apart from like Deshaun Watson. But I don't know. What is your guys' take now after 5 weeks on Herbert versus Burrow?
Gretch?
Oh man, I'm the guy that's like, I don't want to overreact too much, yada yada, but Herbert looks really fucking good. As far as film and watching the games, Herbert has assimilated very quickly, right? And Burrow maybe not, but I'm not gonna write off Burrow at this point. It's like I don't want to compare them, but I'm a lot more optimistic about Herbert. I was actually not very stoked about him. He's a Pac-12 guy up out here. He never played well against my Huskies, and I was convinced that he would. I actually kept this take off Twitter because I've seen people who had like bad Patrick Mahomes takes get that shit retweeted for like 3 seasons. So I'm like, I am not talking about a quarterback on Twitter that I don't think like might not be that great, but I wasn't not that high on him. I think I was really wrong already. Like I'm already completely sold that he's very good, but yeah, I don't know about the Burrow comp. That's a tough one.
The whole offseason, Sean was, kind of saying Burrow might be the best quarterback in the class. Or not Burrow, Herbert might be the best quarterback in the class. And we're like,
dude, Sean is so.
Sean.
I remember looking at Sean's rookie ranks, and he had Herbert and Burrow right next to each other. And I was like, what's Sean doing? The dude's always fucking right every single time.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
I remember seeing that too, and I was like, no, he's wrong. He didn't see enough Herbert. I saw more Herbert. I watched him play my Huskies. He was bad.
That's
always the sign of death.
There was a couple questions in here. This is a good way to wrap up. People want to know thoughts about the Rams backfield rest of season. We had 2 weeks ago, Henderson crushed. Then he came back in, flopped, and did nothing. Then he resurged, and yet at the same time, Akers busted off a really big run. Where are we at on the Rams backfield, guys? Let's start with Pat. We'll go around the horn.
Oh God, can I talk about Herbert? He looks great, guys.
We're done with Herbert.
Shit. All right. God, I don't know. I mean, this is like, it's super hard. I listened to Denny Carter on the Roto World podcast talking about it, and he was just basically threw up his hands. So I feel like I can throw up mine. I guess looking at Akers on that long run, I'm like, well, this dude can play. I think Henderson can play. I wish Malcolm Brown would go away, and then we'd be okay. I think then you'd be in a situation where Henderson and Akers are fine, and they're both startable. But for whatever reason, Malcolm Brown keeps being involved. I guess my thinking on it would be that at some point Akers is going to get more work. And the question is, does that come from Henderson or does it come from Brown? Logic would tell you it comes from Brown, but I'm not that. I don't feel that strongly that it will, because I've been kind of fooled a bunch of times already.
Blair, what do you got on Rams?
I mean, going into the season, McVay was saying it's just going to be a hot hand. So in that sense, he's like true to his word, and we should have seen this coming. But I guess the guy I want is Akers. But I am, I have a known rookie bias. So,
Gretch, where are you at on this backfield?
I think it's a tough one because, like Pat said, you'd think that Brown would be the guy who wouldn't play a lot, but he seems to have the most defined role, which is passing downs. And it doesn't make any sense. When has Malcolm Brown been a good pass catching back? What? Like, Cam Akers had a decent enough receiving profile, a good receiving profile, right?
Yeah, pretty good.
Pat, you guys know better than I do.
It was solid.
And Henderson was the guy they talked about as Alvin Kamara last year. Like, that's Sean McVay's comparison. But Malcolm Brown is the dude that you're using on every third down, on every long down distance. That's the guy that they keep playing. He's run routes on at least like 45% of dropbacks in every game, I think. He's been heavily used in the passing game, and the other guys aren't. So then it's like, okay, if that's going to continue, then you have Akers and Henderson splitting basically lower value touches. It's just not a fun thing, because those are the guys that certainly have more appeal, I think, from an upside perspective. So I don't like it.
Henderson's getting work on the goal line, right?
Yeah. I mean, Henderson looks great. He's popping from like a rushing market share perspective. I can't think of the word. At least, this week and week 3. Week 4 was a little bit different.
Right.
But yeah, he's seen 11 of their 13 running back green zone touches over the last 3 weeks. But we don't know if Akers will use some of that. I mean, Akers, interestingly enough, when he went down in week 2, it was on a green zone touch. He was kind of playing on the first drive and got tackled inside the 5 and then was out. And Henderson, I don't believe, had a green zone touch he didn't in week 1, and I don't think he had one yet in week 2. And so it was like Akers roll a little bit more before that. I don't know. It's hard to say. Akers also had a green zone touch in week 1. Malcolm Brown had 5 in the first 2 weeks, then only 2 over the last 3 weeks, while Henderson got more of those touches over the last 3 weeks. So everything has kind of fluctuated on the running side a little bit, at least. The only role that I think is like solid right now is Malcolm Brown in the passing game, which is, again, doesn't make any sense.
All right, guys. This has been a fun edition of Ship Chasing. If you guys aren't subscribed to Stealing Signals on Substack, check out Ben Gretch's Twitter at @YardsPerGretch. He's got the links there. Awesome newsletter. He also did an update talking about bench stashes. He talked about the Bills-Tennessee game. If you guys aren't subscribed to RotoViz, we got Blair Andrews over there crushing. He's got the expected points column every week. He's doing are you doing AFC or NFC for the 0 RB column?
We alternate back and forth. So this week, I think I'm NFC.
NFC. There you guys go. We reference the RotoViz stuff all the time. Honestly, if you are listening to this show and not subscribed to RotoViz, I literally don't know what you're doing. We got Pat Carrain over here. He put out Stat Chasing yesterday, an hour 45 on all the stats. Pat, anything people need to know about that?
No, go check it out on YouTube. I mean, it's on the podcast feed if you're listening to that. I mean, that's great. But on the YouTube feed, we got these charts that Sam Hoppen put together that are awesome. So you can get a little visual component there as well. So check it out there. Subscribe there.
Yeah.
I guess you're here already. So.
And if you're watching this video, hit us with a subscribe. Ship Chasing, the road to 1,000. Pat and I are working with multiple marketing firms. We're rolling out a campaign, Ship Chasing Road to 1,000 subscribers. You guys are going to help us do it. We will be back every Wednesday night. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Ship Chasing. We'll see you guys next week.